Yep, well, the game is going to be starting soon. However, should mention again that these fixes are teaming and bolstering. Zyro, do you think we'll see these teams struggle here on this map?
No.
No, okay. No, he says we will see Goosy Bad versus One Last Chance on the first game here on Workshop.
Okay, so both teams here, they're actually doing a little bit different of a strategy. Goosy Bad is using those rocket barrages to be able to nuke down all the mobs. And Hunte and Anarchy get the bad result of that rocket barrage. So the reason that most teams don't use the rocket barrage is because it's really easy to get hit by those whirling blades that are, if you're standing out in the middle of the room, because they do come out with that first set of the rockets. Hunte and Anarchy show you exactly why.
Yeah, it's going to cost them about 20 seconds, including those stats.
Rezzing?
That is a great question,
Are they
Tunnels.
DC?
I am unaware of the reasoning behind their play here.
That is quite unfortunate. Well, One Last Chance, not slowing down. They are currently pulling into coin-operated crowd pummeler and No Mercy for you, getting No Mercy in that 60% health range, just making sure that they constantly stack his 5 underneath the hammer there. Where Hunte on the side of Goosy Bad still hasn't released. I think it's probably safe to assume he's DC.
Yeah, it seems likely that is what's happening. I don't know. I'm sure we'll find out eventually what's going on the side of Goosy Bad. Meanwhile, the gameplay will continue though, as teams are always instructed. You know, keep going through the match, even if something like that happens.
Yeah, and teams are responsible for their own internet, so while DCs do occur, there's no protocol for a remake, which is unfortunate, but... Okay, so Goosy Bad has actually begun pulling...
Yeah, they're going to pull this without a healer. It should be a doable boss without a healer, and this, I think, is a good way to make sure they're not going to lose too much time while Hunte reconnects.
Do you think that they should... I mean, they should be able to live through the first vent jet, right?
Yeah, so it's gonna be Turtles probably on the first vent jets. If I had to guess. Yeah, here comes that vent jets.
Oh goodness. Maybe they could live with just Exil and
yeah, Spiritmen's.
Spiritmen's. Okay, yeah. So it looks like it just Spiritmen's. Okay, hunters are very strong.
They're doing okay here. They have to really be careful to not take any avoidable damage though, as they don't have a healer. Yip's also taking quite a bit of danger. Does have access to some defensive abilities still, although he's out of most of the major ones. Is going to get some Spiritmen's cast onto him. Big off-healing from the Hunters. Meanwhile, on the side of One Last Chance, they have successfully slain their boss and are advancing down the trash chute. I think Goosy Bad... Okay, so here's that second Vet Jets, and this one is going to be Turtles.
Okay, yeah, this makes sense. One Last Chance here. They're going to be going down to the trash area. I think we saw this from them yesterday. I think I believe that they pulled the 2 waste processing units, where Goosy Bad, since it's bolstering, they just pull all of those slimes. And then, okay, so no. One Last Chance is doing a very similar strategy from what we saw from most of the other top-end teams with the living wastes. So they're just going to kill off solely the living wastes, and then meld off the rest of the trash as it's going to be bolstered. It's actually a really sick strategy, and it's an easy way to get count. Like, it's kind of hard to get count on teaming otherwise.
It looks like they're not even going to do that. It looks like they're just going to meld.
Huh.
Yeah, they'll just maybe go back and get some trash after in that area. Meanwhile, on the side of Goosy Bad, a Battle Res was required to be used on Anarchy, who died there. The rest of them, though, look like they're going to be okay. That is their final hammer, I believe. Oh, no, they got one more hammer, maybe? Yeah, it looks like they got one more hammer here. That should be able to finish off Platinum Pummeler.
Oh yeah, so Platinum Pummeler can die from like 30% health with a hammer hit.
And Hammer's not even going to be going off here.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Slightly inefficient, but is what it is.
Hopefully we can see Hunte rejoining the party at this point.
So Hunte could release right here if he was back, but again, probably just disconnected. Man,
that is very unfortunate. They do still maybe have time to catch up if he can rejoin soon. One Last Chance, working on Cujo. After this, they might... since it's bolstering, they may do a strategy we've seen other teams do, where they'll pull in those 2 teeming junkyard dogs right at the end of the Cujo encounter.
Mm-hmm.
That can sometimes be foiled by the Vent Jets timing, or the Vent Flames timing. But I think it's going to work out okay for them this time. You can see, yeah, they're kind of cheating over towards that side of the room.
They're also doing a good job of, so whenever you have these explosive leaps, you can actually just like meld it off or feign death it off. You saw Wasted there. on the side of One Last Chance, feign deathing it, like while the leap was midair. That makes him take no damage, and that makes him no longer cast any other leaps. You can do that with abilities like Vanish, Feign Death, Shadow Meld, other things that drop combat. I'm sure there are more, but those are the notable ones. Pretty good use of One Last Chance there. If you're also if you're far enough out, you can just walk out of it. But the downside of doing that is that like the downside of like walking away from it is that it continues to keep going, whereas like vanishing it off or whatever is going to save you. Just save you some damage from the consequential jumps. Okay, so now One Last Chance has these 2 Junkyard Dogs.
Yeah, Goosy Bad, meanwhile, they've pulled a bunch of Living Wastes, bolstered up a bunch of stuff, and they're now going to try and meld off combat. Unfortunately, it looks like Hunter Pets may be refusing to cooperate here. Eventually, they're able to do this, but it does cost them 2 deaths. They're probably not doing the pulls that they normally would be doing. They're just kind of trying to slowly advance through this dungeon here as they don't have that healer. And yeah, they're just going to be pulling some trash here. This will allow them to skip a trash pull on the bridge later. So again, they are doing their best to make it so they're not so that they're not falling that far behind here. But they need Hunte to rejoin soon.
Do you think that this dungeon is doable without a healer?
Yes, I think it is with this composition, especially if you knew in advance. If you knew in advance that you didn't have a healer, you could also be playing that regenerating hit band thing that we saw the hunters playing from Method EU. For the kiting strategy of the last boss of Motherload. That is something that I don't think the hunters knew in advance here, although we could actually take a quick look at their gear. Yeah, they're not playing the healing ring because it is a slight DPS loss to do so.
Yeah.
But I think even without that, it's still doable because they have turtles and feigns for the Giga Zaps on the last boss in the second phase. I think that they probably are going to have to do like a lot more Awakened Obelisks than otherwise planned. I think their best bet is probably to just assume that Hunte will be rejoining before then.
Well, Hunte just DM'd me on Discord and goes, "I'm freaking out, man. My net is just dead."
Oh no.
Oh, no, dude.
One last chance in this gauntlet here. Yeah, this is really not anything I mean, it's very, very unfortunate when this happens to you, but really credit to Goosy Bad for the rest of their team sticking with it and continuing their run here. And that is by far making the best of a bad situation for them.
Yeah. One Last Chance has actually been doing a good job. They haven't had any mistakes. They are pulling enough count to where they only have to pull that landing piece of trash that's right before King Mechagon. So that's all that they have to have. Beyond that, as long as they have a clean run, there's nothing they can even be mad about, right?
So I've discovered what the problem is going to be for Goosy Bad. The Dispel on Cujo is going to be just killer for them.
Okay, so Cujo has a Dispel mechanic, and there is a 0.00% chance that Yips could live through that without a Dispel.
Yeah, so maybe the strategy here is, pull it, and maybe you could kite enough with intervenes and heroic leaps to avoid it getting applied to you.
No,
I don't think it's possible, though.
I think that they're doing the best strategy currently by not bolstering up their deaths anymore.
Yes, they're gonna be waiting for Hunte to return. Meanwhile, One Last Chance do have to complete the dungeon here in order to claim victory. It's definitely in their best interest to do it as cleanly as possible as well.
Well,
we have all the hunters of Goosy Bad taking a nice siesta here. One imagines that that's actually not all that comfortable given the molten lava flowing just below them.
It's probably warm though, right?
I imagine that's uncomfortably hot.
Oh, now they're using all their... Okay, anyways. One Last Chance. Moving Voidweaver Mouthier around here. Probably going to be looking to snap Voidweaver Mouthier momentarily from Shaurus. There's like a little box that you can use. It's probably pretty good for live realm stuff as well.
Yeah, that little box in the right corner at the end of this gauntlet. Very, very nice little place to, teleport Voidweaver Mouthier to. It looks like this team is, though, is just going to be running it the old-fashioned way. I believe this is a slightly slower way to move this mob, because you get this kind of inefficient time where everybody's trying to line of sight to move it. It feels more efficient at first because you don't lose the DPS time up front, but I think you lose more total DPS time. And they are eventually going to be able to snap it here.
Where do they snap him to?
They snapped it further in here.
Ooh, there's another corner that you can snap him to. Well, okay, so the advantage of snapping Mouthier is that the Scarabs don't snap too. The Scarabs will just kind of sit there and linger behind. So it allows you to, separate them out pretty quickly because Ideally, you don't do any damage to the Scarabs because they just passively kill themselves off. Very efficient in that regard. But One Last Chance does snap Void Weaver Mouth here. Now they're playing this top landing pack. Basically, whenever you play Head Machinist versus this landing pack, it kind of depends on cooldown timing. So you should generally just make a judgment call. If you have all of your offensive CDs ready to go, you probably just go straight into the boss. If you don't, then you just probably go straight into this trash. Because, especially in a Tyrannical setting, Head Machinist Spark Flux, the longer the fight goes, like, the exponentially longer it's going to take, just because there's going to be some damage loss based on movement. There's also more plants that spawn that you have to focus down. So ideally, you end up, like, moving your damage up front to try to mitigate the time that's going to occur on the back half of it.
Yeah, it's something that can be relevant depending on your composition. I'd argue that with this triple hunter composition, they're neither super cooldown dependent, nor do they lose damage from movement. So I think that it's a lot less relevant than if you had, say, a mage who you really want to make sure you have combustion going into this boss fight, if you do.
Okay, update. We're back. Also update. I'm so sad.
Is that from Hunte?
Yeah.
All right, Hunte has rejoined the party, and Goosy Bad, just 11 minutes into this dungeon, will be having their 5th member joining them. They will attempt to have one last chance, have something equally calamitous happen to them. There it is, Hunte.
There it is.
Running back, uses the Tiger's Lust to rejoin the party as soon as possible.
Our hero. At this point, One Last Chance is really far ahead.
Yes, I would certainly give the advantage to the team that had 10 extra minutes in the dungeon.
Okay, you're not saying it like that. Okay, so One Last Chance here. It's like I said, they needed their cooldowns on pull. From that point forward, you're going to get fewer cogs, you're going to get fewer plants, you're going to get a lot less of this fire. Triple Hunter doesn't like lose as much damage as other groups would because they don't have like a ton of casters or a ton of melee, so their uptime is
It's 100%.
fairly high.
Yeah,
exactly.
You lose 0 damaging globals as a result of the movement on this fight.
But even still, it's a lot more dangerous the longer the fight goes.
Yes, definitely that is what scales up here is the dangers. You get those plants spawning, and then when the plants die, you get them leaving that oil spill, and then the next time it gets hit by the hidden flame cannon, it turns into an oil volcano. I do love the way that the fight works that way. Like I love the way that the mechanics interact like that.
Okay, so I genuinely think this fight is pretty cool because almost all the damage is avoidable. Like pretty much 100% of the damage is avoidable. But I think that the gear should probably despawn after a certain period of time.
Yeah, it's got that kind of Legion Tyrannical boss fight where it actually just never, like, it doesn't hit a cap of how hectic it gets.
There's 8. That is a cap. There is a cap of 8 cogs.
Okay.
The problem is the cap of 8 cogs is like almost impossible.
Yeah, it's very, very hectic at that point. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of enjoy it though.
I think it's a fun fight. So triple spider tank has been pulled on the side of One Last Chance. Goosy Bad will be downing the second boss of the instance, Cujo, momentarily.
Yeah, you'll notice on the side of... Good.
I would say that they are probably irreparably damaged.
Yes, definitely looks like it. You'll notice on the side of One Last Chance, they've marked a skull marker onto one of these tonks, and they're going to kill that one slightly before the other two. That's the farthest up tonk on the bridge here, and it is the one that starts the RP for the vehicle to bring them to the next platform. So you want to kill that one a little bit earlier than the others if you can, and that will mean that you don't have to wait around for the helicopter thing to get here after the tonks die.
Yep, so One Last Chance does that, takes the Dratnus tip.
Now they're going to try and get the short way on their helicopter flight here. Sometimes your helicopter pilot is competent.
The only person who needs the short way is...
around.
The only person who needs the short way is Chaurus because he's the pinpoint here, is the linchpin. So like if he gets the short way around, he can immediately start pulling. Whereas if say your DPS gets the longer around, you're kind of chilling. Like you don't lose as much time. You're still waiting. You'd be waiting on the tank to be like pulling for you to be able to get any damage set up, anyways. So it's all on Chaurus getting the short side. He does there, but.
Yeah, so One Last Chance, they're going to have to actually pull both of these packs on this little bridge here, as they have skipped quite a lot of trash percentage earlier in the dungeon in that waste processing unit area. Goosy Bad, if they can get to this point, don't have to do that pull, because they did pull all that while Hunte was gone.
Exactly, that's a good point. This top pack at this landing area, especially, I think just ever, is highly recommended that you don't pull it. One last chance, noticing that they are probably significantly ahead at this point, is now electing to play
This
this
is a great adjustment for one last chance, trying to really slam the door on Goosy Bad here. Yeah, and just say, look, the way that we lose this dungeon is we wiped 3 obelisks on King Mechagon over and over again, so let's just take this obelisk here. It's going to cost us 1 minute, but it's going to dramatically reduce the chance that we wiped that boss twice, which is what needs to happen for Goosy Bad to win.
Yeah, they would absolutely... Okay, so they would either have to, like, chain feed themselves to this trash pack that they're going to pull after this obelisk mob, or they would have to chain feed to King Mechagon, which... I mean, I've seen weirder stuff happen before, but...
I mean, I've certainly chain fed to both that trash pack and that boss myself, so...
I think we've both been there then, because I too have... Actually, I haven't pulled that pack this patch. I pulled it in pre-patch, whenever it was on the PTR. I've not pulled it since, because it's just not okay.
Ooh, they're gonna combat drop in here with that Awakened Portal. Right into the middle of that pack. Yeah. That stealth bonus is gonna be massive for them.
Oh, is it? One of the downsides of pulling this trash pack is that there's double Mark III robot and 1 defender, so you're only getting 1 shield generator here, but you're getting double short out. I think that's ultimately why this trash pack is so dangerous. In combination with the double short out, you do still get those arcing zap abilities.
The higher health Mark III robot is going to be the first one to cast the short out here as well, because it did the first cast before. They need to get that thing down. That's the X marked one. It'll be casting short out in a couple seconds. Looks like they've managed to do it.
Yeah, they're kind of hard chilling at this point. Double obelisk on this boss for teams of this caliber with this much practice is fairly tame. It'll be
the blood
Blob
of the fear guy.
And Samrak and Blob. So they're pretty much chilling unless somebody... There could be some very large mistakes that occur, but I think more likely than not they should be okay. Bloodlust is coming out for one last chance here. They're using that 100 pet Bloodlust, which is the full value. What's the name of that ability? Like Netherwinds?
Primal Rage?
Something? Yeah.
It used to be a bunch of different abilities based on what pet cast it. Now it's just that ferocity pet type. Yeah, Primal Rage.
Right, so something that's also kind of cool in this fight is that since there are 3 targets, the hunters from One Last Chance are getting that rapid reload value, which will help assist their aspect of the wild cast to be able to reset a little bit quicker. But because they will be casting multi-shot as opposed to Cobra Shot. Pretty
Indeed they will. Not once one of those things is dead, though.
Yeah. Well, no,
well, still once, but they won't get the benefit from the trait. Yeah.
Exactly. They won't get the benefit from rapid reload, and they only multi-shot to maintain
Beast Cleave.
Beast Cleave, yeah, I was gonna call it Bestial Wrath, that's not right.
Oh, Goosy Bat. Wow, Goosy Bat here really trying to catch up, and their route looks quite a lot faster. They are pulling trash into the end of Head Machinist Spark Flux. That's something that is very sketchy, because the boss arena is just so full of garbage at this point. All these things going around.
Squirrel.
Yeah, double squirrel coming out. They finish off Spark Flux, but this efficiency is actually looking fantastic for them, and this is saving them something like 30 seconds. Unfortunately, they lost much more than 30 seconds early in this dungeon, but I believe that their pathing through this dungeon is dramatically better than One Last Chance's.
Yeah. Their pathing looks good from what we saw. But One Last Chance, not eluding the targeting system, taking it straight to the face, but they do have 2 battle reses available. I think at this point, you would have to have like a full wipe on the Magneto arm to be able to put Goosy Bad in a position to where they'd be able to take it, right?
Yeah, or somebody would have to disconnect.
You wanna know something? You wanna know something interesting? The Magneto arm actually scales with Fortified.
There are a couple possibilities that do that.
Yes.
Like any possibility that makes a unit, something that even is coded as a unit, even if it doesn't actually have a health bar. Often those will work as Fortified rather than Tyrannical scalers.
The Siege of Borealis ads scale Tyrannical.
Yeah, a lot of the actual ads that you can target will correctly be flagged as Tyrannical ones, but a lot of the, like Galv's pillars, for instance.
Oh, this is really bad for One Last Chance.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, 40 got hit by the recalibrate. Okay, it's fine. It's a 19. Exhilaration comes out.
Oh my goodness, the things from beyond chasing them down as well.
Oh, nice freezing trap.
Beautiful freezing trap, but he's getting zoned by those chance really making it interesting here at the end. Again, those things recalibrating. Oh my god, goodness, Char is nearly knocked off the edge.
Okay, we're good. Everything's fine, I promise. Char's getting knocked off the edge would also probably cause a wipe immediately.
Yeah, because then the boss would cast the tantrum thing.
Yeah, my hands slam on the ground and then
reminiscent of the Ulduar boss. I don't know if you played back then, but the XT 001 Deconstructor or whatever, that guy.
I didn't play back then.
Okay, yeah, very, very famous boss.
But I have had...
No. Tantrum. That's an authentic voice line there.
That was a good one, I like that. Okay, so anyway, Sharos gets hit by the recalibrate, gets the life cocoon out on him. Man, things for Beyond just chain spawning for the Hunters of one last chance.
Yeah, well, because they have these dots on them from the Giga Zap, and those dots are a bunch of damage instances that can spawn Thing from Beyond.
Yeah. One Last Chance is going to be downing the Omega Buster, going to be taking this first map of the series. Goosy Bad, unfortunate circumstances, but it looks like their healer is now around to be able to help them in the next match.
Yeah, it is unfortunate when you see those things happen, but just as a reminder for everyone watching from home, it is in our ruling that players are responsible for their own internet. So in the interest of tournament integrity, that match was just going to be continued. So, but fairly clean run on the side of One Last Chance. Do you think, though, Zyro, that would have been enough to beat Goosy Bad?
I mean, if you saw from just how perfectly all three of the Hunters on Goosy Bad were lining up with their Feign Deaths and how their pets were all perfectly in that V formation, I think I'm gonna err on the side of no. But yeah, and to add on top of what you were saying, part of the reasoning for that ruling is just it's way too difficult from a tournament admin perspective to actually differentiate between DCs or just what might be a rage quit. If there was a remake rule for disconnects, then players could abuse that by fake DCing or rage quitting. So that's just kind of one of the reasons why that's one of the reasons we have that rule in place. And in situations like this, it's a little unfortunate, like you said, but I think you got to have the integrity.
I think it's almost impossible to be able to even compare Goosy Bad to One Last Chance in this.
Yeah,
dude, One Last Chance actually just played an obelisk, like they audibled an obelisk.
That was a great choice by them.
Yeah,
that was a fantastic
decision. It was a good audible, right?
But they wouldn't have done that if Goosy Bad had been on pace, probably.
Pretty much. So it's hard to even tell like how things would have shaped up if Goosy Bad was playing the whole entire time. So I think all you can really do is just like look forward towards the next dungeon.
Yep, let's not dwell too much on that one. We are going to be moving on in this series, so that brings One Last Chance 1-0 against Goosy Bad. This is a best-of-3 series, and we'll see if they can tie it up or if One Last Chance is going to close this out with a 2-0. But we're going to be moving on to MOTHERLOAD, and Tuttles, what do you think about this next matchup? What do you want to see from both of these teams?
Sanguine management. Sanguine MOTHERLOAD is very tricky because you have a lot of mismatched health mobs. The Peacekeepers have about 2.5 times the HP of like the Assassins, and I think they have like almost 50% more health than the Thug. So they have a lot of mismatched health. In addition to that, you have stuff like the off-duty laborers, which have like half the HP of the Assassins, or like a third of the HP of the Assassins. So there's a lot of mismatched health. There's a lot of ways that you can use like taunts. Like monks can speed taunt, DKs can like grip mobs, Ring of Peace. So Sanguine management has to be on point for these teams. And it also comes down to like pathing, like which mobs you're picking, when you're playing what. Kiting, like it just all comes down to how you're kiting around the room. So I think we're going to see the team that has like the best strategy involving kiting around and just how they use Ring of Peace and whatnot be able to show a lot more finesse in this MOTHERLOAD.
I'm curious to see if we'll see any Vengeance Demon Hunters showing up here. We saw one of them in the EU Cup against Sanguine Underrot. We saw a bunch of them in Sanguine Toldagor here so far this weekend. And I wonder if anybody's going to bring it out in the MOTHERLOAD too.
I wouldn't hate it in Sanguine MOTHERLOAD, right? Purely because Protection Warrior is not exactly that great at being able to face tank any of the Peacekeepers inside of MOTHERLOAD. I guess Vengeance Demon Hunter wouldn't be able to face tank 6 Peacekeepers either. So
I mean, they can't. I mean, they press Metamorphosis. They're kind of chilling.
You think they'd be able to face tank those?
Yeah, they got tattoos. Magic doesn't hurt them.
What?
It's a lot.
That's how it works. That's what the tooltip says. It says that their tattoos
Really?
give them magic defensive. Yeah.
Yeah, they have
my
10%
goodness.
DR flat. The,
Demonic wards. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize it was the tattoos, though.
Yeah,
I
it is
thought
the
That's the
tattoos.
flavor. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, but
that's
if you choose the character model that has no tattoos, do you not have the damage reduction?
No.
That's
That's
just-
Comic
yeah.
Sans written on them. It says Magic DR. It's on their arm.
Oh my
okay.
goodness. Okay. Well, a question that I do have, a map that we talk about quite a bit is Dagor with that Sanguine. As we know, that's a very tight map. And then when we look at MOTHERLOAD, how is that going to change things for them on this map, Zyro?
I'm not 100% sure what we're gonna. I mean, we're probably gonna see DKs in MOTHERLOAD. That's a pretty typical thing to see in general. But aside from that, the affixes are not too bad. Grievous Sanguine, you're gonna have sort of the same issues we saw for the EU teams in Siege of Borealis last week, where Grievous and Sanguine on their own just kind of pose a new threat to the dungeon in general. You have to have very good tank kiting in general, which you normally have to have in the first half of MOTHERLOAD anyways. But just an extra strain on the healer as well. There's a lot of residual damage that goes out on the group, and you need to make sure that you top them before any extra, one-shot mechanics come out. So we could see some random deaths to players if they're not, particularly careful with their mob control, and we could see some big healing on Peacekeepers too.
Yeah, looking forward to it. And as far as the obelisk management titles, you want to make any, what do you think the strategy going into this? Is there going to be like a clear choice on how these teams deal with it, or what do you think we're going to see?
Did Goosy Bad play MOTHERLOAD already?
Um,
I want to say I saw them play it versus Method and A. So okay.
Yes,
So
they did.
from what
Yeah, they
what
played
I
it in the
remember
first
is they
game.
played the first obelisk of the dungeon. So that almost makes me want to assume that they're probably only going to play 2 obelisks with the final boss, which makes sense. One last chance. I suspect that they're either going to play 2 or 3. 4 obelisks with Mogul Razdunk is just not very feasible for a lot of teams. So I think that I have a high suspicion that Goosy Bad will probably play 2 obelisks with Mogul Razdunk. It is a hard boss to be able to deal with obelisks on, just generally because Void from out there can get caught out in the middle of the room, just doing weird stuff. Weirdly enough, the Tank Buster is the easiest to deal with because his Gatling gun lines up really well with Dark Fury. So that's it's just easier to deal with in that regard. Samrek, whenever he fears you, he can fear you into the Boomba Bot circle on the floor, and then the blob is just frustrating because there's already limited space in like limited zones in which you can be.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on with Mogul Razdunk. That's why a lot of teams on Live Realms won't play any obelisk with the final boss. Plus, there is utility value in the skips that the pillars give you.
didn't Method EU try and kite the Awakened mobs last week on MOTHERLOAD?
I don't know if I even
sure
love
did.
that.
Indeed, they did, and indeed, Grievous was active. That was Tyrannical Grievous MOTHERLOAD as well. So, on Fortified Grievous, it certainly should be doable. I think it does require those bit band combos on your players. And one thing about it that made it really feasible, I think, was the triple hunters back then. I think if you want to play Death Knights instead, which you maybe do on Fortified, then it stops being something you're going to want to do.
It's weird to me that EU. Okay, so it's weird to me that MOTHERLOAD has turned into a triple hunter dungeon. Okay, so European players for time trials have Sanguine MOTHERLOAD, which is the polarizing part of MOTHERLOAD, on their time trials, and like some of the top times, like most of the top times, are playing triple hunter, which historically MOTHERLOAD is like a double DK kind of dungeon. So it's kind of strange to me that it's being shown as triple hunter on EU.
Yeah, I think the teams are just all about that single target.
No trouble.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see if they run into any trouble on this map. One last chance is up 1-0 against Goosy Bad. Here they are on MOTHERLOAD.
All right, so big distinction in the two comps here. Demon Hunter for one last chance, and then a Green Hunter for Goosy Bad. Both teams immediately going into the Obelisk with Urgoth, Breaker of Heroes. I want to see where they put this out portal. So there can be multiple strategies for where you put this out portal. I think there are probably 3 likely spots. So the first one is the typical live strat where you place it. You put it in that pack where all the off-duty laborers are. The second one is probably in that back corner area / underneath the pavilion to allow you to have the most room to kite. And then the third one is you take it into coin-operated Crowd Pummeler's room and start working your way back. I think those are the 3 logical points. It looks like One Last Chance is taking not the airdrop approach where Goosy Bad is taking, both of them are taking the kite strategy approach where they want to start out with a little bit more space and then like start pulling inwards.
Yeah, One Last Chance taking it into the garage here. One of the nice things about that is that it's a nice central location where they can kind of get access to everywhere, but they're not actually going to drop out in combat because there's no enemies that are too close.
That's a good description for that. I've always called it a pavilion, but I think the garage, I'm going to take that.
Well, there's 2 vehicles in there just chilling, waiting to be activated. You actually can activate those ones in there as well. It's tricky, but it's doable to activate the one on the right.
So One Last Chance doing something interesting. They're actually just going to annihilate all the off-duty laborers. They're using their blood, their Fel Barrage to be able to deal with them. Goosy Bad, on the other hand, has elected to go for an enormous Bloodlust pull. One Last Chance. Really good Ring of Peace management there. Rain goes down. What did he die? Did he get meleeed by that mechanized Peacekeeper?
It's a possibility, Tattles. That's what looked like happened, yeah. He died right next to all the Sanguine as well, but I have to imagine he didn't just die to a Sanguine bath.
I hope he didn't die to a 15 stack of Sanguine. I really hope he got meleeed by Peacekeeper.
Yeah, there goes the Life Cocoon on Showers. Looks like they've stabilized on the side of One Last Chance. They do have that instant cast Battle Res, both teams do, because of those Death Knights. But Goosy Bad already onto their second pull of the dungeon now. Okay. This one's going to be another 3 Peacekeeper activation one. That's going to be a big count for them.
One Last Chance has a space advantage here. So look at how many Peacekeepers are activating here. Then their Bloodlust coming through. Wasted drops so low, but it's going to be all okay here. Sharis, he's probably going to be the breaking point at this point. There's no way that you're able to face tank this many Peacekeepers, so you just make sure that you keep kiting. Sharis doing a good job of intervening to friendly targets, getting far away. He actually stops that assassin with his fear. Wild.
Yeah, so their initial strategy was to get all those laborers out of the way and drop that Sanguine inside the garage. And that's... Oh, Sharis goes down on his heroic leap! That's going to be a full team wipe for One Last Chance. They have to meld here.
They're going to lose the... Okay,
they're going to lose the...
point. Yeah. They lose... Okay, each one of these Peacekeepers has a mech jockey in them that contains 4 count. One Last Chance lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Peacekeepers there. My math tells me that's 20 count, Tratness.
Yep, that is not good for them. That's going to be a whole extra pull later. Might have only been 16 count because one of those Peacekeepers might have been the already activated one.
The pre-activated one.
But still, yeah, you lose the activation of or you lose the count from the mech jockey once you drop that tag.
So whether 16 or 20, that is one pull. Almost full additional pull that you have to do.
Yeah, or they'll have to find a way to enlarge one of their pulls by a noticeable amount. Goosy Bad, though, things are going well for them. They're moving into coin-operated Crowd Pummeler's room.
I forgot that I saw this yesterday. So they pull this whole entire trash pack into the boss. Again, this is going to be crucial to make sure that you have good binding shot / Ring of Peace / grip. Yeah, they do absolutely have the tools. Death grip management on just not dropping the Sanguine underneath the boss. But basically, as long as it doesn't heal the boss, it can heal that Peacekeeper to full 3 times over, and you'd be mad, but as long as it doesn't touch the boss, you're okay.
Right, they need to be really careful here of that Hired Assassin and that Refreshment Vendor.
Oh, nice
Death grip on the Assassin. Ring of Peace now for the Refreshment Vendor. And Yips is taking no chances. They're moving away. Yeah, they can stun it out there as well. They're just going to let it cast, though.
Honestly, it's fine to sit right there. Okay, yeah.
And they managed to get all of their soccer kicks in, and that is looking good. Now they just have to watch out for the Peacekeeper Sanguine. Both the boss and the Peacekeeper can get into these cast sequences, and if they're on top of each other when the Peacekeeper dies that way, things can get very bad. Looks like they're just going to focus damage onto coin-operated Crowd Pummeler.
No, they're okay. So they kill the Peacekeeper off. Coin-operated Crowd Pummeler is going to be here moving for probably 10 more seconds. They're
great.
Chilling on Sanguine. One Last Chance, though, that full team wipe, that sets them back really far. Because that was their Bloodlust pull too, wasn't it?
Yes, they're going to attempt to recover here. They're doing some medium-sized trash pulls, but they are now dramatically behind where they plan to be in this dungeon. They put all their eggs into that basket. That pull, if it worked out for them, would have maybe pulled them ahead of where Goosy Bad was. They would have gotten a huge chunk of count all at once. But since it didn't work out, they gave up on that count, and they lost a bunch of time as well.
Would you say that the basket has been overfilled and the bottom of the basket has fallen?
Yes, I would say that's exactly what happened for One Last Chance. Yeah.
Too many Peacekeepers. Okay, so yeah, here now Goosy Bad, after this, will be pulling a bunch of those Earth Rager mobs. Ooh, Chun goes down for One Last Chance. Chun, a lot of fans in the chat. Probably going to be spamming his name. Okay, 40 does something that's really smart there. He actually taunts that Peacekeeper, and him and Wasted finish it off there. That's an underrated move a lot of the time. The utility of taunt in Motherload, very grossly underrated. Like, you could use pet taunt from hunters as well. Yips is getting low. Yips goes down.
Oh, no. This is going to be catastrophic for them as well, because they're still in combat with all these things. Looks like a Feign is coming out, and the pets are going to play dead.
Okay, but Yips lost his trinket. The
lingering
Nazov
psychic
trinket.
shell. Yeah.
Yes, the lingering psychic shell. So now he gets a life cocoon. As long as he's able to stabilize and get this pack like fully pulled, they should be okay.
Those throw rocks, though, are going to come out at him. He does also have one of those rock lances debuffs on himself, but he is going to be able to survive through that.
That's a
there goes the Ring of
smaller
Peace.
pull than it initially.
Sanguine, though. Oh,
attempted.
no.
Oh, my healing. Oh, Cryptix goes down.
Yeah, they dropped a Ring of Peace there, but it looked like the Ring of Peace came out a little bit before the first mobs died, and that caused Sanguine to be dropped at the end of the Ring of Peace rather than the start of it, which is not how that is supposed to look.
I suspect that Cryptix probably died to a combo of Throw Rock plus Earth
Shock.
Earth
Yep.
Shock is actually an invisible cast by the Earth Shapers that will go on the nearest target. So sometimes you'll have like your melee like generally should be baiting like one of the Earth Shocks onto each melee, especially if you have high survivability melees like Demon Hunter or Death Knight. They can just kind of take them. You really don't want it going on your tank, because if it's actually going on your tank, then they'll probably perish relatively quickly.
Yeah, your tank can also spell reflect them, but you just have to kind of guess that they're about to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, popping AMS, popping Blur, getting a melee and dealing with those is pretty good. Cryptix shouldn't go down to them if he's face tanking them. As long as he, like, has his AMS, I suspect that he probably got hit by Throw Rock at the same time. And
Yeah, the Throw Rock also targets closest target, but that one at least you have a cast time on to know what's happening.
Well, it's also physical.
Yes, so AMS not effective against that. There's the Ring of Peace, and that is a beautiful spread on all these mobs. A lot of them casting that final blast now. We do have a Fanatical Driller coming out.
Well,
if they can, they're
melt
going
it
to try and trap that. Yeah, or they're just going to bring it into the next pull.
Well, they bring it
What-
to the next
what do
pull,
I
but then
know?
eventually they melt it off. But
I
yeah,
think that one's just going to end up dying.
was
They'll probably
probably
meld
gonna
off the second one from the next extractor. Yeah, so those drillers don't give any count, so there's no reason to fight them unless it's just easier to do that than to meld them.
do they drop on death affixes?
I believe they do.
Why do they not give count, but they drop on death affixes?
That is a great question, Tettles.
In the meantime, one last chance here. Continuing to kite out Peacekeepers in the first half of the area. 39% count was about where we saw Goosy bad whenever they enter the coin-operated crowd pummeler area. So I suspect one last chance is going to be able to make their way downtown into that part of the city here momentarily as soon as these Peacekeepers go down. Their wipe was catastrophic, I will say. Oh, is that guy in Sanguine?
Nope,
No.
just at the edge of
Easy
Sanguine.
game,
Excellent
honestly.
work for one last chance, yeah, and they are advancing their enemy forces count. So they're behind by about 20% and a boss, which is a lot to be behind by, but it's not an insurmountable lead. Goosy Bad working on Voidweaver Malthier now. This is their second obelisk.
Yeah. I believe that they skip the blob. And then the only logical conclusion is they also skip Samrek, which both of those are...
Neither are too bad
typically
for Hunter
played.
compositions.
Yeah, that is true. They're not
Cryptix is going to have the most trouble, I'd say, on the last boss with both of those active.
I'd almost rather play the Tank Buster over Samrek, right?
Especially with a Hunter in your group, yeah, you just have the pet taunts available for it.
I mean, Dark Fury is annoying for Cryptix's uptime, though. I think
Yes.
Malthier is by far the worst for uptime, just generally because of how she can get caught out in the middle of the room, and you do have triple range in quotation mark kick with double Hunter and the DK Mind Freeze range. It's definitely not the same.
So take a look at what Goosy Bad is about to do here. So they're bringing Voidweaver Malthier to the very middle of where Azarok is. And by doing this, the first person to leave the Awakened Realm here, which is going to be Yips, is going to get in combat with all four of those enemies. And so all of them are going to cast Raging Gaze onto him.
Look
and
at
he's
it.
going to get fixated. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out that time because some of them were a little far away, but he did manage to bait at least two of them onto himself.
So
if you do that right, you can get all four of them onto the tank.
It's not based on range. So there's like a tick rate for when the players come out of the portal. And if you get the long side of the tick rate, then you can just get all four gazes onto the tank. if you get the bad one, then
It's not just tick rate though.
warrior's not
It's also if the warrior is really if the warrior is close enough to the Earth Ragers, they'll get in combat with him independently of Azarok putting them in combat with him, which is faster. So that's why you see them put the portal in the middle of Azarok rather than just coming out somewhere else.
So would you rather not like drop it off to the side, have the warrior come out independently, than like leap on top of Azarok?
Well, if you leap on top, then you've got a little bit more time where you're not in the middle of his hitbox.
That's true.
So that's why the portal being there is what increases the reliability of the strat. Although of course it's still not 100%.
It's not reliable, I think, was the point that Trados and I
I
were
mean,
making
it can be reliable if you have them in the right spot. Like if you come out in the exact right position where all the Earth Rages are in the right spots in their mini patrols as well. There are people who reliably get all 4 of them onto themselves.
You know what I saw the other day, Dratnos? Well, I'm looking at One Last Chance. Wasted had to actually turtle into Sanguine to be able to kick one of the soccer balls. I saw one of those balls get feared by a prop player.
Yeah.
And like in the opposite direction, they got kicked the wrong way.
Shars goes down on the same pole where Yips went down.
This is a wipe. This is...
Well, Shars is running back. He may have... What essence is he running? Does he have an AoE taunt? Looks like he's just not going to get in combat perhaps here.
So...
Yeah, he's playing Memory of Lucid Dream, so he doesn't have an AoE taunt. And they're just going to be full wiping here.
I have seen more people lose their runs by turbo feeding to this pack than most packs in many other dungeons, just because it's so easy to be like, no, keep the pull alive. They're low.
Yeah. There's spots here that look like they're line of sight as well and are very much not line of sight, and you're trying to line the throw rocks back there or whatever, and the rock lances does not work.
Especially once you have a protection warrior die. If he has 0 rage walking into this pull, he will get 100 to 0'd again. So
Goosy bad, also doing a big pull. Yips taking a lot of damage from an Eye of Corruption, is barely going to be able to survive on their side. And yeah, once again, we have a little bit of a... Actually, no, the Sanguine looks like it's being well managed this time. Yeah, great job.
That's really good kiting. Okay.
Dismiss Pet coming out now from the Hunters. That means that we are going to see a skip, and we will indeed be seeing the Blood of the Corruptor with the last boss on the side of Goosy Bad. They're making their way now through the middle of the R&D department. 80% trash count already, so they're pretty much done.
Oh, dude, the next dungeon just told it.
The next dungeon just told Dagor.
Well, more Sanguine management.
Yeah, this is the Sanguine management series.
Okay, so Sharros goes down for one last chance again. Sanguine management is one of the most criminally underrated things in MDI. Like, it's so hard to make it look clean, but whenever you're actually playing the game, doing it well is just one of the absolute best feelings. And doing it poorly makes you feel like a fool.
Yeah, it's one of the most taxing things about being a tank actually during Sanguine Week is just how much like you need to be paying attention every single second of every single pull, because if you just turn off your brain for 5 seconds and those mobs start dying with Sanguine, you're gonna get yelled at. You're gonna feel really dumb.
Why didn't you move them? I don't know.
Goosy Bad doing this pull here of a War Machine into Rixa Flux Flame.
This is high tank damage, but...
Yep.
Okay,
they
so
also need to be careful
Rixa-
with the Sanguine, especially as the little mob here dies.
So Rixa notably has magic damage melees, and as I talk about time and time again, Protection Warrior not very good into Rixa Flux Flame, so that, when paired with the charge shot from the Venture Co. War Machine, is a high amount of tank damage. It is a Fortified on a 19 with like high item level gear. Yip should be able to tank this fairly comfortably, but even still, this is a lot of damage. You see Yip's rally right there, even.
Yeah, you can see a lot of damage coming out onto the group there. There's Yips' Lingering Psychic Shell as well. Sanguine going to be dropped here. Is the boss inside of it? No. Great job by Goosy Bad. Just at the edge of the Sanguine puddle.
What a prayer. Like, that's... I don't want to say lucky, but man, that was close.
Yeah, it was calculated. Calculated,
exactly. That's what it is. They calculated the radius, and they had /range 5 on, and then they moved the boss right on the edge.
Yeah, they practiced this 10,000 times. They know all of those little spots. They're exactly how wide the Sanguine puddle is.
10,000 times, you say?
Yep. 85% trash count now for Goosy Bad. They're going to do one more trash pull in this area. That's going to let them use the last obelisk if they want.
Do you think
given the trash that they're pulling here, I think that they're going to pull that obelisk, because they're pulling a lot of trash. They're pulling the Sky Scorchers, and the primary reason I think to pull those 2 Sky Scorchers there is to let you get access to the, well, not the 2 of them, but at least one of those Sky Scorchers is the one that guards that obelisk.
Sky Scorchers are what, 5 count?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I don't even know count here is percent anyway, so it's like hard for me to tell.
Yeah, this should be all the count that they need for this dungeon. Wow, that Sky Scorcher is just... So, one of them looked like it was... I'm not actually sure what happened, but one of them now is back next to that obelisk. It seemed like it wasn't there before.
That's a patrol one. No. That's that one that patrols around. So you... Yeah.
It just chills. It's chilling there.
Yeah, so there's... Well, I mean, it patrols into this location. He doesn't start out in this location.
Okay.
If you walk up far enough, then he'll walk into here.
I see. So yeah, actually Goosy Bad are not going to be... they're not going to be fighting this obelisk at all.
Are they overcount? I think they're overcount.
They are going to be slightly overcount, yes.
Okay, so part of the reason that you're going to normally be overcount in this dungeon, generally, is because those Venture Co war machines are actually just mob count on wheels. Like, they keep spawning these mines, and whenever the mines die, they give you 1 count per. What is Motherlode, like a 400-something count dungeon?
Yeah.
So it's 1 count per, which can, like, it'll end up varying their count.
By a little bit. It shouldn't be this much, though, I think.
Like 8-ish?
I think they probably have pulled 1 or 2 extra enemies throughout the course of this dungeon, at least.
Yeah, they're probably...
It's not a big deal, but it is slightly inefficient. As we see now, they are fighting the Fear Guy and the Blob with Mogul Razdunk, a notably very difficult boss to fight awakened enemies with.
I kind of hate these two. I think I would...
Rather have the other two.
I don't know if I'd rather have... I don't know if I'd rather have Mouth here, but, like... I'd rather not have Samrak. I'd rather have Urger out 100 P.
Yeah, there's kind of an element of chance here as well, where if they get the same safe spots over and over again, those safe spots are going to be full of Blood of the Corruptor pollution.
The Blood of the Corruptor's fine. The Fear is actually what is...
Well, but if the same 2 save spots get picked over and over again, it's going to be all full of garbage at that point. But luckily, they're able to kill off the Blood of the Corruptor here before that ends up happening to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they have a lot of tools to deal with that fear. They have the AMS, they have the turtles, they have revival.
Something to note as well is that there are a lot of safe spots actually on this platform. Currently, Mogul Razdunk is standing near a safe spot, but neither Cryptix nor Yips were trying to...
Yeah, it's right about where Cryptix is standing right now. Is a spot that will basically never be hit by the missiles, the micro missiles.
Yeah, there's a lot of safe spots in this room that allow you to not be hit by those Boomba micro missiles.
Yeah, definitely something worth learning. Very useful set of spots to know. You do look pretty foolish if you're a couple feet off though of the safe spot and you just get hit. You're like, oop, I thought I was safe.
I've never been there.
Of course.
Goosy Bad here. Yips is doing a really good job of being able to soak these Azurite Heartseekers. It looks like that other one is going to go down right before that Heartseeker cast goes off. You can dodge or parry the Heartseeker as well.
Not parry, no. Just dodge, actually.
Just dodge. What a great game where there's a massive distinction between the two.
Sometimes it'd be that way.
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like I never really understand the distinction between dodge and parry, so it's hard.
Parry is like you use your sword to, parry something, whereas dodge you're just getting out of the way, and the bullets are too fast for your sword to catch. But if you're not there, they still don't hit you. So that's the official lore reason.
Yeah, I see. Goosey Bad here, dropping Mogul Razdunk sub 20%, one last chance. Has recently down Rick's Flux Flame, but I think it's a little bit too late, unfortunately enough for them. Honestly, Goosey Bad Sanguine management was looking pretty crisp.
Yeah,
overall.
One last chance fell behind pretty early in this dungeon, and Goosey Bad never let up here. Their run looked pretty great, and they're going to come in with a sub 20-minute Motherload. Great job by Goosey Bad, recovering from a very unfortunate map 1, and they'll be bringing us to a game 3.
Yeah, good job by Goosey Bad. That is going to tie this up 1-1. And yeah, well done by them. Only 2 deaths for those guys. And like you were saying, that Sanguine management was very, very good for them. And then on the side of One Last Chance, they had a bit of a messy run. They had like 15 deaths, 14 deaths, somewhere in there. Where were we really seeing them struggle, Zyro?
Their Sanguine management was just not up to snuff at all. There was a lot of really bad healing going on. Just not great mob management in general. I'm sorry, I'm still reeling from that dodge parry explanation from Dradnos.
Has your mind been expanded?
Weren't you guys talking about that yesterday?
They were
we
talking
talk about it every
yesterday.
day because I don't. Okay, there are some. There are some things that you can dodge but you can't parry, and I don't always know the difference between the two. And that is one of them that I know is you can use one but not the other, but I didn't remember which one it was.
It's almost always dodgeable,
Dodge? Okay.
but not parryable. If something only works with one of them, it's usually dodge that works.
That's fair. That makes sense.
All right. Are we good?
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever be good on that explanation, but let's just say we are.
Okay, all right, we'll leave it at that. But yeah, the next map, we're going to move on to Dagor. So if this is an issue of Sanguine management for One Last Chance, how can they hope to even compete against a Goosy Bad on this next map, Dranos?
Well, yeah, so their Sanguine management, so to some extent that's going to have to be something that improves, but on the other hand, a lot of what cost them huge amounts of time in that Motherload was not so much the Sanguine, it was just a wipe without Sanguine being involved pretty much at all at the very start of the dungeon, so... I think that, they're going to be playing potentially that Demon Hunter, that Venged Demon Hunter. That gives them a lot more tools to deal with Sanguine. Dagor, it's a very hard dungeon with Sanguine, but they have access to that different tool with it, and I think that's going to be their best hope here, is that it's just... Motherload was a very hard Sanguine dungeon for slightly different reasons than Dagor is a very hard dungeon.
That was the point that I was about to make. Dude, Motherload's, the practice that is required for Motherload and the finesse that is required for Motherload is very different than the finesse and the practice that is required in Dagor.
Right.
Like, you're not taunting mobs. Motherload, you're, taunting and gripping a bunch. Whereas, you have to be able to get the mobs, stacked up perfectly and kill them, bolster kill them, almost evenly. It's a lot of different
fleeing mob management, which is a very different thing than managing mobs with different health totals. So yeah, I think that it's enough different that they are not necessarily just dead on this map.
Well, and also the problem with that is if you look at time trial times, they're 6 minutes behind. Goosy Bad with a 16:30 in Dagor is
but last time
that almost has to be
good.
a wipe. Being 6 minutes behind from a team that they look good, right? They look like a team that if they are able to execute with 100% success rate all of their strategies, they look like a good team. I don't suspect that their route is 6 minutes behind. I suspect that they probably almost certainly had a full team wipe in the Dagor, which is why they were so far behind.
Yeah,
That's gonna
good.
Go ahead.
Okay, last time we were in Dagor, we saw the team that was behind by more than 4 minutes in time trials ending up winning. So it's by no means are the time trials the end of the story here. This is a dungeon where there's a huge amount of variability from run to run, as so much can go wrong in here.
Yeah, and as we saw from Ethical in that last match, this is a map that teams can quickly start to fall apart on. It's really kind of a difficult feat, Tuttles, to pull this off cleanly.
Yeah, Just Hallis's room. Just Hallis, I've seen a lot of teams wipe on over the seasons. I think Volzith from Shrine of the Storm is probably taking the cake for easiest to wipe on this season, particularly. But just historically, the Just Hallis encounter and the Just Hallis room has been just brutal for teams.
Yeah, surprisingly as well, when you think about all the bosses in Dagor, that one is often the one that you'd put as the easiest of the bosses if you just play the dungeon, normally. But with MDI style pulling onto it, it could get very hectic very quickly.
Yep, and if we take a look at the bracket as well, this is an elimination round. Loser of this next game, as it is all tied up, is going to be knocked out of the tournament, and the winner goes on to face Ethical. And given how we've seen Ethical play, how do we think that's going to play out, Zyro? Based on if either of these teams make it against Ethical.
It's tough to say because Ethical did have the problems like they mentioned, especially in that Dagor, which is probably one of the toughest execute dungeons. I think it'll be close regardless of whichever team takes this one, but I think I'm gonna give a slight edge to Ethical here. I think the big thing that we're looking at in terms of Goosy Bad is their strengths, and one of their biggest strengths is King's Rest, which is not in that lower bracket. It is in this. It is in the semifinal.
Yeah.
It's not in the lower bracket final. So, I don't know. I think I just have to give the edge to Ethical because they could just ban out the King's Rest against Goosy Bad, and then that's their one major strength that they have in terms of dungeons removed.
Yeah, I would say that's fair. Looking at the next series, that should definitely be interesting if either team makes it. I think honestly, especially with the way they've been playing, it seems like it's kind of going one way or the other real quick. But yeah, we are going to be moving right along here pretty quickly. Again, loser of this game gets knocked out. And I don't know, given the map pool that we've seen for this series, which one do you think is really like the hardest to manage? Like we've had 2 Sanguine maps and then that workshop titles. Do we feel like these maps are really pushing these teams to the best of their abilities?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Dagor and Motherload probably require some of the most practice out of all of the dungeons in this 11 maps that we have. Like in almost all the maps that we end up having, Dagor and ML are probably 2 of the ones that require by far the most practice. So like the most well practiced in the team that comes with the best execution on that day will absolutely win.
Definitely. Yep. And I don't know. I think it's really cool to see. Also, something that we've touched on really a lot is how these teams are really, over the course of the last couple of days, we've seen them really improving Zyro. And even though we've had these teams the ones that have gotten knocked out as well, have had these kind of unfortunate games, it really does, I think, say a lot about what we can expect if these teams decide to stay together and continue to play in these cups. They're really starting to shape up, I think. Yeah,
they're definitely improving very quickly, and you kind of have to. We keep talking about, the course of the entire season. The entire season's only... It's only 4 weeks for these teams, right? From the end of the first cup to the end of the third cup, so they don't really have that much time to improve. And I think the improvement we've seen from the first week, 2 weeks ago, to this weekend, for both EU and North America, both of these regions have improved drastically. So I think that the third cup and then of course the finals later in the year are going to be pretty spectacular to watch.
Mm-hmm. And what does that say also about their commitment, Dratnos? Like, if you look at AWC, on the other hand, you really only need a minimum of 3 players. But here in MDI, you have to have 5 players to commit to having those really rigid practice times, showing up every week. How difficult is that to find a team that's not only going to play well, but, like, show up consistently and really try their hardest?
Yeah, it's really difficult to get 5 people to agree to do that, and it's even more difficult to get 5 people who still want to do that after the first cup and who still want to keep going after they've actually done the practice so far. So as Tettles can attest to, sometimes it just it's a really, really big challenge.
Yeah,
is a
absolutely. I mean, it's personality conflicts. You have to be able to find 5 players that work well together. Both of these teams have been working together well, and Goosy Bad and One Last Chance have started the first pull of Dagor.
Yeah, Goosy Bad, they're a bunch of, they raid together as well, so that's something that...
Exactly.
These are people who know that they like each other, which is a really good thing. Sometimes when you start an MDI comp, it's a bunch of people that somebody knows everybody, but not everybody knows everybody. All right, we're going to start off with this Sanguine Sand Queen. On the side of Goosy Bad, there goes the Sigil. They have to be really careful here with the Sanguine. Oh my goodness, they are. That is the best I've ever seen of the first pull there, I think.
I mean, both teams like almost mirrored HP whenever the Sand Queen goes down into that burrow. Now both of these teams are grabbing those parasites.
Oh no, One Last Chance baited its upheaval cast into some Sanguine. That is going to lead to the Sand Queen getting healed for them. That's going to take the possibility of pushing it before the third upheaval off the table.
Oh no, now they're killing the parasites right beneath the boss.
And it is again going to get a tick of Sanguine. Another one there again. This boss is now healed for millions of HP. Meanwhile, on the side of Goosy Bad, nothing of the sort happening for them. Their boss down at the 40% mark. They are on good track here to push it before that third upheaval cast.
Yeah. Okay, so the reason that One Last Chance actually got that first little bit of upheaval ticking is I suspect that they used like a Shadow Meld / Vanish / Feign Death ability, and whenever you use those, basically the boss will just come up, not exactly in the spot that he burrowed in, but nearby it, and whenever that happens, sometimes it just comes up right underneath. Goosy Bad grabs those stinging parasites out of that grate area. So that grate is actually closed. So Hunte will go over there and Chi burst through the gate to be able to grab those, allowing Goosy Bad to just get a little bit more count.
Yeah, that's going to secure them some extra count, and it means that they won't have to deal with them as they do their next little skip. Here goes that third upheaval.
You've seen teams beat that, right?
Yes, it is doable. We've seen it. But it is a tight DPS check to do so. They're going to have to spend a little bit more time here finishing it off.
I don't know
Dismiss Pet coming out from Kevin, and they are about to start their Shadow Meld skip up into the prison.
Yeah, for me, I don't know if beating that. Sure, beating that timer is like a time save, but like realistically, if you miss it, as long as you have good Sanguine management, you're fine. One last chance is actually pull the turtles. Oh, ooh. Okay, so these turtles do a whirl cast, and that will stun the group. You can either kick it or be out of range of it. One last chance is move the boss pretty far from where it spawns, but the boss notably has a really far reset range. Like, you have to pull it out in the water kind of far. So,
Yeah, these turtles are reasonably good count. They're pretty deadly. They need to be interrupted.
yes, that's the most dangerous part. Plus, since they're yellow mobs, they shouldn't drop Sanguine, right?
They do drop Sanguine still.
They do drop Sanguine, even though they're yellow mobs. Okay, no consistency.
Oh, the other yellow mobs here in Dagor also drop Sanguine, like the scallywags and stuff.
Yeah. It's always hard to tell. I haven't pulled these mobs
It's
in a while.
bolstering that they won't bolster the
They don't bolster.
the hostiles, I don't think. Yeah. All right, Goosy Bad have done a large pull inside the prison. That's pretty standard that we're seeing coming out of them, and they're going to move into this obelisk here, fighting the Blood of the Corruptor. Blood of the Corruptor, very difficult to fight in its obelisk, but even more difficult if you fight it with the last boss in this dungeon, because you can't really move to dodge its defiled ground.
Yeah, because
that
the Heartstopper Venom. Yeah, really bad. So Goosy Bad doing a decent job of trying to get these Mindrin tentacles grouped up, and then once they're grouped up, Cryptics, Kev, and Anarchy should be able to like pump out a bunch of damage, but they really need them to be stacked up in melee. It's hard to get them stacked up just due to the fact that not all of these pillars are really great line of sight. They're really narrow pillars, but Goosy Bad is able to down those Mindrin tentacles, and then they will be moving the Blood of the Corruptor up towards this Jess Hallis area. One last chance is now making their way into the prison. And they were probably going to be doing something very similar to what we saw from Goosy Bad. They used Sigil of Misery there on those mobs. Probably going to be looking to, yep, right there, meld off all that aggro, enter into the obelisk here, and now they are moving Blood of the Corruptor up towards that Jess Hallis area. Notably, they are 11% behind in trash count though.
Yeah, both of our DHs here playing fairly defensive setups. Actually, yeah, so we've got both of them playing. So Yips is playing more of a single target build than Sharis is. This is kind of cool. We've got a little bit of difference in the DH builds.
Explain.
Yips is playing Bile-stained Krog Tusks instead of the Slappers, the Raden Lash of the Void weapons, which is what Sharis is playing. So it's a little bit more single target for a little bit less AoE. And that's allowing him to play a lot more of that versatile corruption as well, so he'll be even tankier too.
Yeah, Yips is playing a lot of versatile, and then he's also playing an ineffable 1, which is... I'm sure that's useful for, like, I'm sure that has intent. Maybe he just had extra budget available to be able to get that piece on. So, notably, the reason that you want the Slappers for Vengeance is because Vengeance Demon Hunter's threat is normally pretty questionable, especially if you're playing with a DK that's ramping it up. But as long as Yips feels comfortable enough with this threat...
Yips does have Anima of Life and Death Major, so he's got that big AoE damage, yeah. And that scales with his maximum health, which combined with the Gluttony talent, he's in meta a lot, so he can line those two things up. Normally, you'd see something like Twilight Devastation on live keys, but here in MDI style pulls, Yips needs that versatile to be able to stay alive.
That's such a weird take on what the essences and
Yeah.
Azurite, not Azurite, but Corruption you should be using, because Sharis is running something that's more standard from what we've seen from tanks thus far, where he's running Strength of the Warden Major and those Urgent Caress Raden weapon slappers.
Yeah, Char's also combining Strength of the Warden Major with Merectha's Fang to increase its damage after the cast, which is another pretty common combo. But yeah, these two tanks disagreeing quite a bit about what the best stuff to play is.
Yips not, okay, one, he's not a tank main. Two, he also kind of just plays whatever he wants. Really down to kind of just do whatever. Jess Hallis is getting a little bit of Sanguine healing there.
Yeah, Flashing Daggers cast going off. Yips getting feared and getting hit by Flashing Daggers, and that's going to be his last resort popped as a result of getting hit by both Bobby and Jess Hallis on their line of sightable abilities. Of course, he couldn't really hide because then he would risk resetting the boss, so he had to just tank that.
Yeah,
and yeah, they're cut off here by Sanguine, I think is why they're line of sighting this way.
Well, no, I think this was intended just because of they will move through the doorway to line of sight. From what we saw from Ethical earlier, they had some of the trash get pulled in with dropping Sanguine, and they dropped Sanguine in their double line of sight spot. But in that doorway, you can comfortably line of sight every single cast, and if Bobby flees and does his Howling Fear from afar, you should be able to get into the doorway. The downside is that Yips doesn't have a reliable way of line of sighting, but he looks like he's just like fully face tanking every flashing daggers.
Yeah, he did face tank a Howling Fear as well, though, earlier, and that ended up costing him his cheat death, so definitely something went wrong here.
I don't love face tanking the Howling Fear, but it is what it is. So, minor healing on Jess Hallis as a whole for Goosy Bad. They're going to be able to down Jess Hallis. Jess and Bobby are going to be falling momentarily. One Last Chance has made their way into the Jess room. They're in the corner area from what we've seen this from a lot of teams where they pull all of the trash into the corner and then get ready to be able to pull Jess with Chi burst through the wall. One Last Chance has now moved their mobs right on top of these C speakers who will cast that Salt Blast. Like we talked about time and time again, these mobs flee whenever they get low health, so they're kind of hard to deal with. Look at the C speakers walk away.
Yeah, and then they get those casts off, and it can get really, really unfortunate. Yeah, this is why this is such a difficult Sanguine dungeon here, is you just have to fight these mobs 3 or 4 times. There it goes again, fleeing into the Sanguine. Great grip coming out from 40, though, to keep it from healing from that Sanguine. Meanwhile, Goosy Bad have done a meld skip up to Samrak Beckoner of Chaos's Obelisk. They're going to be fighting that awakened enemy now. The other 2 will be with the last boss. That's going to be the Tank Buster and the Spider.
Yeah, so those 2 are fairly common to go with with Overseer Korgus, because Samrak, like we were talking about Blood of the Corruptor, when matched with that Heartstopper Venom on Overseer Korgus, pretty nasty as a whole. It's hard. It's really easy to get it stacked up just by like fleeing and terror and whatnot. So just playing this Obelisk is definitely in the favor of Goosy Bad. From here, Gibbs needs to have great mob control, and then since he is playing that Vengeance Demon Hunter, they will have the 5% magic debuff, allowing them to kill the mobs with 1 fewer shot on the cannon. I believe it's 3 shots instead of 4. So.
Yeah, I think that 4 is like the usual best that we've seen a team do.
Is it 4?
I think it's
3 yesterday.
Okay, we'll take
a look.
Yeah,
we'll watch.
Have a little look here.
Okay, so Sigil of Silence comes out first before anything else.
That's gonna make those early casters not actually kill Yips here while the rest group up. There's the Sigil of Misery.
Here's the Misery.
Soon is gonna be a
have
chains.
Last Resort.
Yeah, there's shot 1. Chains
Here's
into
the
shot 2.
Ooh, okay, there we go.
Here comes shot 3.
Okay, so they're like 5% on shot 3, so it is 4 shots, yeah.
Yeah, and the 4th shot kills everything. They have an extra shot on that cannon even. Perfect execution of that by Goosy Bad.
Absolutely no need for the 5th shot. So I bet the reason that I saw was 3 shots like yesterday on a couple of them is like if your Hunter is DPSing a little bit early or putting just a little bit of damage in, then you're able to get into 3 shots, but that seems not good. That seems seems like that's a good way to get Sanguine healing.
Yeah, something weird happening is usually the most slow possible thing during this section. Hunte getting hit by some stuff. Yips also 3% health, no last resort available.
This is scary because he doesn't have last resort, but he's going to be okay. Oh, Anarchy gets hit by those casters. Proxys cheat death. But cheat death is talented to be used here, so it's going to be fine. They saved that Ring of Peace from last pull. They didn't even use it at all. This is probably why right here.
Yeah, Ring of Peace, very potent ability. Okay, a little bit of Sanguine
nice
dropped,
grip.
but no Sanguine healing. And they're going to need an extra cannon shot, but that is no big deal. Very good execution by Goosy Bad there without access to all of those massive utility sigils. Really great job as they advance now on to Knight Captain Valerie.
That was really clean. So it was just like being patient. They didn't overcommit utility on the first cannon shot. They knew that they didn't need a lot of stuff like that Ring of Peace, so that they were able to maintain it for the second one, getting everything grouped up from getting everything grouped up from 2 sides like that is so dangerous. The fact that Yips doesn't have last resort was very scary there, but Goosy Bad does an impeccable job. You see Hunte here running the barrels. So if you don't, the easiest way to deal with this fight is just get the barrels out of the middle of the room as quickly as possible. Just move them to a corner, and then just drag the boss to that corner, and you should be fine. Then you just occasionally have to cross the room, but all in all, as long as you get all the barrels out of the middle, it's pretty easy to deal with, right?
Yeah, there are a couple teams that take slightly different takes on this boss. You know, some will be pretty aggressive and just move around a lot and, you know, not move very many barrels. Mm-hmm. That'll get them a little bit more healer uptime, but it does run the risk of you accidentally covering the entire floor of the room with fire, which is bad.
We've seen that. We've seen the Infinite Chain come out, I think, from 2 different teams this tournament in Toldor. It's just not aggressive enough moving of the barrels. It's super easy to fall behind.
Yeah, that's the thing, is you can pretty easily get into a spot where you're checkmated by a bunch of barrels that you no longer have the time to move, and they're, you know, in fire already.
Yeah, and then since both of these teams are running multiple melee, it's pretty rough. Junes goes down from the side of One Last Chance. I wonder where he died.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of, you know, they're in combat with some stuff.
Something. Oh,
yeah. That's gonna be another death from Volcanic. Are they waiting for a meld or something here? All right, looks like they've dropped combat.
What was happening? Weird.
Yeah, there are some mobs that they pass that are in combat with each other. Maybe they didn't quite fully meld everything off properly. They do manage to drop combat now, at least, and they will be going into that obelisk.
But Goosy Bad
they're going to be shrouding, actually, One Last Chance, so they're going to be skipping this obelisk. But yeah, Goosy Bad absolutely downing this boss.
So I think I've seen this before. If teams are shrouding to here, normally they'll go back to play that obelisk in a little bit. Very few teams will skip Samrek and play him with Korgus just because of how deadly he is. If they
the other option is to play. You can play Urgroth after the first cannon pull, and that gives you time for your sigils to recover for the second cannon pull.
That is true, and because 3 obelisks is just not as common with. If you're not playing Urgroth, you absolutely can play Samrek.
Yeah. Definitely, three is too many for Overseer Korgus so far. I don't think we've seen a team do 3 quite yet.
Ooh,
actually, maybe we've seen it once.
Here's the chains. Okay.
The chains doesn't quite go off, though.
Anarchy fired a little bit early, so the chains didn't grip everything.
Yeah, I think that the chains momentum was canceled by that cannonball momentum, and that's going to lead things to being a little bit separated. They need to be careful here about the Sanguine healing, and they are going to be able to hit that last shot on pretty much everything. A little bit of cleanup on the Warden here, but the total amount of damage that Goosy Bad has had to do to a mob that was shot by a cannon is very, very low this dungeon, so great job from them there.
Let me take a gander at what their time for Dagor was. So it was 16:32 in time trials.
This is going to be pretty close to that. They are pulling the boss here. It is Tyrannical, so they're maybe about a minute slower than that. But they are pulling this final boss now.
They haven't had bad Sanguine management. There was some healing on Jess. I assume that's probably going to be the differentiator there. But all in all, this has been really good. Goosy Bad, very notably, can also use Sigil of Silence on Voidweaver Malthier. Since they only have access to triple melee kick, eventually Malthier would get 1 kickoff if you don't end up using that Sigil of Silence. Everybody's standing in the Dark Fury here. All of the defenses being popped at the same time. You can probably stand in 1 Dark Fury cast pretty comfortably.
Yeah, it's going to die before the next.
Goes down before the second one. And then you did see Yips there, if you were paying attention really closely. He uses the Sigil of Silence to be able to deal with one of the Malthier casts. It's like I was talking about, you just need to rotate. Malthier actually getting cast off here is pretty deadly. They can use things like Vanish and Feign Death to be able to cancel, though. And basically every cast that goes on the tank can go off, too.
Yeah, the main thing is to make sure that none of those Lingering Doubt casts go off on Hunte, as that is going to make it so that he'll have a very hard time healing, and they don't have a way to dispel that curse. The Crippling Pestilence casts, they can be deadly because they do a lot of damage, but at least they are not going to lead to a death unavoidably afterwards, like it might if the healer gets that curse.
So basically, the curse will always prioritize Hunte because he is the only caster in the group. If for some reason Hunte was like melded or out of combat with the mob or dead, then it
one goes through on him now.
Yeah, exactly. You saw it go through on him. So that's why he's always going to be priority for that cast. So he would be the one who is highest likelihood of going down. I think Kev, if he got targeted with a Pestilence, he would probably be the highest likelihood of dying to that plus an overlap, because he is going to be getting every single one of the shots on him from Korgus, since he is the only ranged. Hunte is classified as melee, being on that Mistweaver Monk. But Voidweaver Malthier goes down. Smooth sailing here from Overseer Korgus. I heard from this team, though, that tanking Korgus here is one of the scariest things imaginable, because you have to actually dodge the cannons.
The cannons, it's especially for Kev here, who's dodging that cannon at range. It is pretty spooky because you have that Heartstopper Venom that really limits how much total movement you can do. Very dangerous place to fight this boss, but it's what you need to do with these 2 obelisks active. Otherwise, you just have those awakened enemies really far away on pull, and the caster does not cooperate with movement very nicely. Goosy Bad, though, making quick work of this Dagor. This is going to be a nice time for them. Not quite as good as their time trial time, but still quite good overall, and a convincing performance for them in this series. Great recovery from an unfortunate disconnect in that very first map.
I mean,
They did a good job not letting that get to them.
One Last Chance in the first match looked pretty good as a whole, too. Like, One Last Chance's performance in this tournament has looked exceptional. Goosy Bad in series has also looked up to par from what we expect out of them. So One Last Chance is definitely going to get some more time for practice before the third cup. Goosy Bad is going to be moving on to fight Ethical in the next series that they have to play today.
Yeah, congratulations to Goosy Bad, and as you're saying as well, Tuttles, pretty well done by One Last Chance as well. You know, we did see 10 deaths on that, but, you know, I think Zyronic, we were saying that they're doing pretty